Hello, thank you for joining me today on the channel for a special day. It's quite a unique moment. It's quite a depressing moment. You know, I've been dreading this moment. I'm certainly full of dread at the moment at the thought of it. It's bittersweet, for sure, you know? But it is the grand finale to Dark. Today is the day I record the final episode. Yeah, oh man, it's a sad prospect for sure to get to the conclusion, but it's also an exciting one because, you know, it has been absolutely incredible these past 6 months to go through this incredible show. I mean, it's already one of the greatest of all time, right? It's a masterpiece. It really is already. And, you know, I haven't even seen the finale yet. Though, you know, the finale is an important part. It is, you know. Like I mentioned, you know, sometimes finales fumble. And that can have quite an effect on the legacy of a show. So yes, of course, the finale plays a massive part in the lasting impact and, you know, my final thoughts on it, right? But, you know, as of this point, I must say it's already essentially become my favorite show of all time, right? Now I just kind of need to watch the ending. It's already kind of there, you know? And yeah, it's bittersweet, but, you know, I am in a lucky position, in a unique situation, because I get to kind of move on to their next project really soon. Listen, it's probably a few months down the line still, officially on Netflix, but, you know, I do get to check out the first 2 episodes really soon at the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF. So yeah, you know, it's bittersweet, but at least that should kind of give me that shot, that dose, right? My fix, essentially. But yeah, that's for later. For now, it's all about Dark. Listen, so in terms of the conclusion, the finale, listen, I'll be honest, you know, I don't have any specific type of finale or thing that I need out of this in terms of how things play out. You know, I don't think I need it to be some sort of happy ending. I feel like it has to be an ending that is that is in line with the flow of this story, the things that have been set up throughout this story, the themes of this story, right? The trajectory of this story. Listen, I'm not one of those that needs a happy ending. I'm not one of those that needs everything answered, you know? There is there is something about something being left ambiguous. Or some things being left ambiguous as well, right? As long as, you know, it's not something egregious in terms of overlooking something. You know, not everything needs to be clear cut, but, you know, I certainly need some definitive answers. Of course, you know, the last episode was a bit of a bombshell, of course, right? Showing us a third world. Clearly, I mean, you know, telltale signs. It's quite unmissable that it is a third. And it appears that indeed that might be the beginning of it all, right? Tannhaus in the pursuit, in an attempt to bring his family back, or his son and his son's wife and child. He did something. He put something into motion that had quite an impact. That set into motion something else as well, right? So let's see how all of that plays out, right? But yeah, in terms of the ending, I'm confident. I'm really quite confident that it is going to stick the landing, that it is going to deliver a satisfactory ending to this incredible show. And, you know, before I get into it, you know, I've got to thank you all for joining me for these past 6 months. They've been some of the most incredible moments I've had, or some of the most incredible times I've had on YouTube as a content creator. And it's been amazing to be able to share that experience with fellow fans of Dark. And I really do hope to see many of you for $18.99 and of course for more Dark content in the near future. Like I mentioned, you know, this is not the last of Dark. I feel like there's so much more to be explored and dissected. But I think that's about it for this intro. I kind of want to just jump into this finale now. And I do hope you enjoy.
Ich habe dich töten lassen.
Du hast immer noch keine Ahnung, wie dieses Spiel gespielt wird. Du willst diesen Knoten zerstören. Aber jeder Schritt, den du tust, führt dazu, ihn zu erhalten. Du hast gedacht, dass der Ursprung in der Verbindung der beiden Welten liegt. Aber in Wahrheit liegt er außerhalb
Oh,
der beiden
and
Welten.
yeah, there it is. I saw a glimpse of it. 10 houses. Paradies.
Aber das hier, du und ich,
Oh.
geschieht zum ersten Mal.
Oh.
Es ist Zeit, dass du verstehst, wie alles wirklich zusammenhängt.
Man, I have so much pity for Adam right
Alles,
now.
was du getan hast, alles, was Eva getan hat dazu geführt, den Knoten aus beiden Welten auf ewig aufrechtzuerhalten. Du erschaffst dich auf ewig neu. Und sie sich.
Self-inflicted, right?
Wir haben nicht erledigt. Sie hatten das
He was
Werk
just there.
stoppen müssen.
Like I mentioned, it felt so wrong for her.
Alles verstehen.
All die Jahre habe ich gedacht, dass sie meine Tochter ist.
Ich habe mir lange Zeit gewünscht, dass du der Vater bist.
Oh, ho, ho.
Du weißt, was du tun musst. Mach es schnell. Lass sie nicht leiden.
There it
Es
is.
ist kein Leben, das sie liebt. Es muss passieren, damit ich alles dran setzen werde,
Oh.
es zu verhindern.
Genau wie ihr habe ich Schmerz und Leid gebracht. Wieder und wieder. Damit mein Weg mich heute hier zu dir führen konnte.
So who's the father then? I mean, I suppose it's not the most important thing, but
Die Zeit während der Apokalypse ist sie für den
oh
Tod einer
yes,
Sekunde
there it is,
stehen
there it is.
und hat damit alles aus dem Gleichgewicht gebracht. Aber wenn die Zeit stillsteht, ist für einen Moment auch die Kette aus Ursache und Wirkung gebrochen.
Stopping the flow of time again. I knew that's a big deal.
Und ich habe es genutzt, um mich ebenfalls in eine andere Richtung laufen zu lassen, um heute hier zu sein. Und du musst es dafür nutzen, Jonas auf einen anderen Weg zu schicken, um damit den Kreislauf endgültig zu brechen. Du musst sie in die Ursprungswelt schicken, damit sie dem Ganzen...
I kind of feel like Adam right
Ende
now,
sind.
essentially. Claudia, wow.
Aber dafür musst du mir vertrauen.
That's a tough ask. That is a tough ask.
Papa. Sag ihm, dass es mir leid tut.
Wow.
Wenn alles gelingt,
Regina.
dann wird Regina leben.
God. I've got that lump in my throat feeling for like a solid 5-6 minutes now. Go, Giannis, go! Now or never. Now or never.
Wohin mit Gott?
He's about to drive by. Oh my god. Wow. How about that? Oh, he's the one who torches it? Here comes the Stranger's theme again, but it's mixed in with... Wow. Wow. Ha.
Das Leben ist ein Labyrinth. Und manche irren bis zu ihrem Ende darin herum. Auf der Suche nach einem Ausweg.
Oh my goodness. I remember him saying that a long time ago.
Dabei gibt es nur einen Weg.
Takes it deeper.
Und der führt immer tiefer hinein.
Season 1, Episode 5.
Erst wenn man die Mitte erreicht hat, wird man verstehen. Der Tod ist etwas
You
Unbegreifliches.
can make your peace with it.
Aber man kann sich mit ihm versöhnen. Wir
Wow.
sind der Fehler.
Es beginnt.
dome to dome. Yeah. Oh, my heart is beating so hard right now. Oh.
Ach, da bist du.
Er sieht traurig aus.
Wer sieht traurig aus?
Der Junge, der da steht.
Aber da ist niemand.
Oh, she's gonna see young Jonas.
Jonas. Ist alles in Ordnung?
Komm, wir gehen wieder zu den anderen, ja?
Wow. Perfect match. Never believe anything else. This is incredible imagery.
Ist kein Wunder, dass Mama das nicht mehr ausgehalten hat.
Oh,
Deine ewigen Vorträge, Big Bang, Big Crunch. Hast du Sonja mal gefragt, ob sie das überhaupt interessiert? Du hast mir doch gesagt, die Welt da draußen wäre voller Geheimnisse. Und dass das, was wir wissen, ein Tropfen in einem unendlichen Ozean ist, ja? Wenigstens da hast du mal recht gehabt. Du weißt vielleicht alles über Einstein-Rosenbrücken und schwarze Löcher, aber über mich weißt du absolut gar nichts.
Mich hast du dir ausgesucht.
no. Oh, he's gonna swerve and... Okay, good, good. So this is something else then.
Komm, geht mal nach Hause.
Was wir wissen, ist ein Tropfen. Was wir nicht wissen, ein Ozean.
Dein Vater liebt dich. Er würde alles für dich tun.
Die Brücke ist gesperrt.
Komm. Los, komm. Marek!
From their perspective, that is a creepy experience, but
Weißt du was, du hast recht.
yeah, but an eye-opening one.
Wir sollten morgen fahren.
For Merrick, it's almost as if it's a sign from above, right? No. No, 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 no. No. Oh my god, did he hang himself? Please. Oh. I don't know why I thought that, but...
Brücke ist gesperrt. Dein Sohn denkt, er hat ein paar Engel gesehen.
Mach dich nicht lustig. Ich hatte nur plötzlich so ein Gefühl.
Go on, hug it out. There you go, there you go.
Im Schrank. Das warst du.
Es war kein Traum.
Wow. Oh. Oh. That's it?
Wir passen perfekt zusammen. Ich hab nie etwas anderes.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Bright, blessed day, dark, sacred night. What a
That's right, stranger.
Going by, I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" I hear babies crying. I watch them grow. What a wonderful world.
Ja.
Warte, ich helfe. Nimmst du mal?
Ich mache mal eine Flasche auf, oder?
Ja, mach mal. Hilf mir doch mal. Komm.
Komm ich auch einen Schluck?
Ja. Und jetzt stoßen wir auf Regina.
Oh wow.
Auf dich.
That was
Auf dich.
Bernd Doppler, wasn't it?
Und danke für die Einladung. Ist das jetzt die Apokalypse?
Wir machen die Kerzen an.
Ja, warte, ich hier nach Feuer. Hast du Feuer?
Hannah?
Nice.
Hannah?
Ah, hier. Hanna?
Ich habe genau das hier letzte Nacht geträumt. Es gab einen lauten Knall und dann war plötzlich alles dunkel. Es war einfach dunkel und es ist nicht wieder hell geworden.
You know, Hannah's had these kind of moments throughout the show. She actually does look like young
Merkwürdiges
Claudia.
Gefühl, als ob das gut ist. Dass alles vorbei ist. Als ob man plötzlich frei ist von allem.
Sieht so aus, als ob Winden nicht so einfach gehen würde.
Ich weiß nicht.
I think she knows. She's got something in mind that just came to her. The yellow jacket. She was looking at it. Jonas, she knows. It came to her.
Ich glaube, ich finde Jonas einen schönen Namen.
Ah. Wow. Wow. Ha. Okay, so that's the ending. That is the conclusion, the grand finale to Dark, the series. Yeah, it's a bittersweet. It's a bittersweet feeling. It really is. You know, part of me feels kind of deflated, defeated, and part of me is really quite happy, at peace with that ending. And you know, I say deflated and defeated because of it coming to an end, right? It's been such a exciting constant in my life for these past 6 months now. So exciting, and I've, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I've been dreading this moment. You know, as it got closer and closer, I've been dreading this moment, and now I'm here. You know, right now at this moment in time, I'm at that point. Dark is finished. You know, I've seen it. I've seen the whole show for the first time. I've completed it, and yeah, it's again. I think all of you can probably relate to this feeling I'm having at the moment. You know, I mean, it's the thing is, you know, I knew back in, you know, season 1, back around season 2, that, yeah, you know, the moment the show ends, once I get to the conclusion of the show, yeah, it's kind of reached a peak. It's kind of set a bar so high that you're going to be left kind of, you know, I was about to say depressed, but yeah, you know, that feeling, that empty feeling that nothing is going to kind of reach that, you know, nothing that's around at the moment, at least, is going to reach that same feeling, you know, elicit that same response and excitement. I mean, sure, you know, there's hundreds and hundreds of shows and anime and stories, be it through books and gaming, graphic novels, all of that. There's incredible stuff out there, right? So of course it's possible that something else could capture my imagination and could really elicit the same type of response, or a response that is similar to this feeling, right? This attachment I've had to these characters, this incredible story. I mean, you know, it feels like it's an understatement, or it feels like it's a foregone conclusion. Everyone in the grandma knows this, but this is a masterclass in storytelling. It is, beginning to end, it is a masterclass. And that is a reason, that right there is a reason that not too many other things are ever going to match this. for me. Yeah, this is, I remember saying, yeah, this is going to be a problem, and I can tell already. But that being said, the creators of Dark are certainly active, and, it appears that they are going to be active for years to come, right? Especially given the fact that they have their own production company now, right? And yeah, it looks quite promising, the future. And, all of us are certainly, on that hype train. All of us are behind them to, put out more amazing stories, put out more amazing projects. And one of them includes 1899. And, like I mentioned, I do find myself in a lucky position because I get to check out the first 2 episodes really soon, right? So yeah, maybe this feeling I'm getting right now, this depressing feeling of finishing Dark, getting to see the first 2 episodes of 1899 should kind of balance that out really soon, actually. So yeah, that's exciting. That's really, really exciting. For me, 1899 is one of the most exciting remaining projects of 2022. And then speaking of the finale itself, yeah, I've got to say that is such a fulfilling, emotionally resonant, emotionally satisfying and cathartic ending to the show, and I feel like it applies to both the audience. Actually, I should only speak for myself, though I'm sure, many of you agree that, yeah, both for us, the audience, and for some of these characters as well. And then, Marta kind of posed that question to Jonas. Do you think there's going to be anything left of us? Or is it just going to be like a dream, that they were a dream, right? And you see almost immediately there is a response almost to that, through Hana. And of course, it is Hana, once again, who's experiencing this moment, right? As she has throughout the series as well, at different points of the series, of the story. She's speaking of eternal darkness. That there was just darkness, no light ever again. But somehow it felt like a good thing, right? I feel like, kind of fading into nothingness, I don't think you can just say that is a happy ending for every single character that made up the 2 worlds that Tannhaus kind of created by accident, essentially, right? But you see that Hana, there is something going on here. There is still some kind of connection, some kind of link, right? Residual link, even if it is through dreams, right? Kind of leaking in from alternative lives. But you see, she's having that moment once again. I mean, deja vu is a reoccurring theme of this story. But yeah, the yellow coat, the iconic yellow jacket. In fact, I almost made the lighting yellow, but then I kind of switched it to red at the last moment. But yeah, the name Jonas came to her. Now, of course, I don't think at all that this is meant to be implying that Jonas, is about to be reincarnated or anything, because it's not the same father. It's a totally different individual that she is married to now, right? It's Mr. Eye Patch. So no, it's not a reincarnation of that Jonas, but it is a Jonas, right? In some form, he is going to live on. And the same might apply to Marta down the line, right? Beyond the things they've shown us on screen. Kind of staying at that table, at the dinner table. These are essentially the people that are not born out of the time travel aspect of this, right? They're not time babies. They didn't come out of the shenanigans that are going on in terms of certain people traveling to a certain point in time and then having a child, and that child kind of getting moved around on the chessboard that is time, and kind of being displaced in time, or being put in the right place in time, as Adam does with his half-sister Celia after he chokes out his mother. Though you could also kind of argue that he was, I don't know, it's tough to see it as that, but you could maybe see that it was a bit of a mercy killing in that sense, that she has no role left here and that she's just better off dead, right? Maybe she was even describing her own death, that then it just fades to black, eternal darkness. There's never light again, or there's no light ever again, but it felt like a good thing, right? That's an angle, that is an angle. to take in terms of Adam killing Hannah. And then, in this episode, they also confirmed that indeed it was Claudia who sentenced Tronte. It's a younger Claudia. It's our Claudia, the middle Claudia that kind of goes on to spend decades. Yet she's not the older Claudia that I know. But it's Claudia nonetheless that sends Tronte to that point in time to essentially mercy kill Regina, right? Because what kind of life is that? According to Claudia, that's just, it's not any type of life for her to suffer in that manner, in that apocalypse, and in her condition. Ultimately, there's a lot of, the power of love, the love you have for a child. You see ultimately Claudia is perhaps the most important of the entire show, of the entire story, or certainly one of the most important. As far as figuring it all out, it's all Claudia, right? She came clutch. But, let's kind of go back to that dinner table. So these are the people that didn't have any they had connections to the time traveling aspect, but they're not born out of it, right? Holy shit. Bit of a bombshell right at the end there. And earlier in the episode as well, because, they kind of set it up by confirming, no, actually, Tronte isn't Regina's father. And then here, right at the conclusion, they confirm it's Bernd Doppler, or it was Bernd Doppler, even in the reality that just ceased to exist as well. The world that ceased to exist just now. That's certainly an interesting thought. Okay, let's stick to this one. Regina is able to be alive here. Claudia did it. If everything goes according to plan, Regina should live. And indeed, she does live, right? Though unfortunately, she doesn't come across Alexander or Boris. So she doesn't have Bartosz, right? And then, of course, there's a whole chain reaction to all of that. So a lot of those people just don't exist. Actually, if you kind of go down that rabbit hole, so, since she didn't kind of come across Alexander or Boris because Ulrich doesn't exist, right? So that whole thing didn't go down. So, she didn't have Bartosz, and then Bartosz and Celia didn't have Agnes, right? And Hanno. And then, Agnes didn't get together with the Origin, the Unknown. I say Origin loosely because, of course, that ended up being a red herring. And, I was essentially on the right track because in that big reveal a few episodes ago, I wasn't convinced. Right? It didn't feel like this was big enough to be the big, game-changing moment, right? That this is the origin, this is the cause of all of this, right? I wasn't convinced, and it appears I was on the right track because, in fact, the origin is this. It was Tannhaus, right? Him losing his family and him trying to bring them back, right? The love he had for his child and his child's family. He goes on to, create time travel to bring them back. And then, of course, I mentioned Claudia just now, the love she has for her child kind of goes on to move heaven and earth to, make sure that she can live. And, before I go any further, I should mention that I do feel like I need a few more days even to properly digest this, right? That's just the nature of this, right? I give these reviews, I kind of gather my thoughts and kind of package them in a presentable manner almost immediately, right? But, given the nature of this story, this show, and the themes that play, and that ending, it's going to be one of those things that kind of takes days to really think about throughout the day, right? Kind of come back to it and look at it from different perspectives. So these are my thoughts on it as of this point. And of course, for that reason, I kind of go back to the thing I said a few episodes ago. This is not going to be the last of Dark on this channel. There's so much to explore and dissect, the themes to really dig into. I've kind of touched up on a decent amount, a solid amount over the span of these episodes, of these 3 seasons, but I feel like there's so much more I can extract out of this and kind of package in a presentable manner as well. But much to think about over the next few days. The montage, it is once again perfection. perfection. It really is. And of course, the imagery on display. Wow. And, I love and I really appreciate that it does show the stranger kind of fade to dust. But more so the fact that he realizes, he clocks that, okay, it's come to an end, right? Finally an escape. Then of course, Ava and Adam kind of coming together, right? Embracing. I mean, that's a beautiful moment to see Adam and Ava, and then also Jonas and Marta, right? As once again, he reminds her, that they are a perfect match. Never believe anything else. I thought that was perfect. I really thought that was perfect. Of course, as expected, it was quite an emotional conclusion. I found myself quite choked up and teary-eyed throughout the episode, even at different moments of the episode. I mean, it's quite an exposition dump, isn't it? And I've got to say, I really do appreciate the restraint and the deliberate pacing of this finale, because, finales can be quite bombastic, right? Just by nature, because so much needs to be kind of tied up. Any loose ends need to be tied up in a manner that is satisfying to the audience. So, there's a lot of jumping around. There's a lot going on, but, this just felt like another episode of Dark, right? Nothing about it felt like, this is the final episode of Dark, so, it just needs to have this bombastic pacing to cover all of this stuff, right? And it didn't need to anyways, because, it's done an incredible job of covering that over the span of this season and, the past 2 seasons. So it's quite a refreshing, deliberately restrained pace, right? And like I mentioned, there's a lot of exposition in this one. It's quite the exposition dump, but it's fascinating and it's required. Essentially, you have Claudia who's explaining this to Adam and also to us, the audience, at the same time. And, it's quite the incredible sight to see Adam kind of taking in something entirely new. And you see his demeanor is really different in this. In fact, I felt like some of the acting even kind of resembled or kind of channeled Andreas as the stranger, right? Some of his demeanor, especially as he goes back to get Jonas, young Jonas, right? I'll explain everything. I can explain everything, or you need to trust me. In all those moments, yeah, he once again, he almost kind of felt like Jonas, felt like stranger once again, to me at least. And I thought it was a great moment to see Adam actually be truthful and be on the same page with his younger self, and asking his younger self to do this, because he is the last hope. Him and Marta together are the last hope, and apparently only those two could go into that incredible, space out of time, essentially, right? Wow, the imagery there, it's iconic imagery, isn't it? It's so beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's stunning in there. It was quite reminiscent of Interstellar, right? You can see that it draws a bit of inspiration from Interstellar in those moments. Apparently only Jonas and Marta together could do this, right? I guess them coming together in there made it possible to have access to the origin door, right? Or the opening. But yeah, that moment of Marta and Jonas inside that light bridge, right? Essentially outside of time, outside of the flow of time, right? Yeah, that just rendered me speechless, jaw-dropping. Really, it was just incredible imagery. And then, of course, there's quite an interesting moment, right? As both Marta and Jonas see their younger selves, or the opposing younger selves, through this, space that is out of time, essentially, right? That is allowing you to kind of zone into or kind of experience these moments. Now, see, here's the thing, though. The fact that young Jonas sees this Marta, right, older Marta, and then Marta sees a young Jonas, doesn't that mean that it's already happened, right? It's either that or it's something new entirely, and the whole concept of everything's down. This right here, right, as Claudia established, this is the first new thing. This right here, this chain of events is essentially something new entirely for the first time. But there's also, possibilities here. You could kind of dig into it, that indeed this actually happened before, right? And that even this might be a part of the whole loop or the whole cycle, right? Playing out to its conclusion again. I don't know, it's just kind of a possibility, an angle. But, based on how they've established it and presented it, everything that's happening here from a certain point on is something new. So, right, this episode is essentially the first time that something outside of a predetermined path is playing out, right? Something outside of the knot is actually taking place. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how others see this situation, them seeing the younger selves looking at each other from, the basement door, from the closet, or being able to see them. But yeah, I think the possibility is there that it is kind of hinting at it potentially also being part of the loop, that it has happened before, or this is something that is happening for the first time. And since everything is now, those younger children, Jonas and Marta, are experiencing it, and then because of that, subsequently, it's almost immediately, instantaneously making a new memory for them as well inside that light bridge, right? But speaking of the accident, Merrick and Sonia and baby Charlotte, that's the reason, right? That's the reason for all of this. That's the reason H.G. Tannhaus does all of this in the first place. Of course, it doesn't quite go according to plan, yet it does end up saving his son and his son's family. Ultimately, it does kind of circle back to it. Yes, it's not exactly how he thought it's going to play out, because he accidentally destroyed the world and created two new ones, right? These cancers, they keep describing them as these tumors, these cancers that need to be cut out, right? An invisible bond always remains, as once again depicted through that scene, the dinner table scene in Hana, and alluded to all the way back in season 1 on the stage play, Marta's stage play. And speaking of season 1 and foreshadowing, there is a plethora of it, even to these moments, especially if you look at some of the fantastic scenes of Tannhaus and Stranger, kind of sharing or having that conversation about time travel or time. Even back in season 1, in those scenes, you have Tannhaus speaking of the Trinity knot, right, the triquetra. You have him speaking of a third dimension, right, the Einstein-Rosen bridge and all of that, right? All of that is being foreshadowed all the way back in season 1, right? Even more recently, you have the book, the book that Ellie kind of takes an interest in, right? There, the imagery that's present in that textbook, three worlds. Once again, it's kind of alluding to it, isn't it? And I'm sure there's much more. There's so much more, the opening intros to this show, all three of them are quite different, but I'm sure if I go to those, there might be something in there as well, because that intro itself, the doubling in those intros, it's quite unique. Again, alluding to things that do play out in the show, right? Concepts that do kind of take place in the show. So maybe even in there might be some hints towards, third dimension, three worlds. But yeah, that immense pain, pain that entices people to act, some pain you never forget. Pain is your ship, and desire is your compass. All of that, and you apply all of that to H.G. Tannhaus, and imagine the self-hate or the self-hatred or the self-loathing he must have felt, throughout that time, throughout those decades. He's attempting to build the time machine, and he was successful, of course. Speaking of all of that, this episode, them leaving, speaking of Merrick and Tannhaus having that friction, that disconnect, that, Tannhaus, his head is in the stars. He knows everything there is to know on that scale, yet he doesn't know much about his own son. So, it's a reality check for Tannhaus as well, right? But imagine that being the last time you spoke to your son and your son's family, who has a young child, a baby, right? Imagine losing them on that same night, right? And I love how it's just as described, right? He described to young Charlotte It was raining, it was a storm on that night, and I got a call, and that these interesting looking people showed up at my doorstep with you, right? So yeah, you see that there's a lot of similarities, right? Even though these two worlds, Ava and Adam's worlds, came from the origin, they all kind of share a lot of these things. So in a sense, it's like the invention of time travel prevents the invention of time travel in this case, right? It didn't, like I said, it didn't go exactly how Tannhaus thought it would go, right? But ultimately, yeah, it does essentially serve its purpose, and Tannhaus is never even going to know, because it canceled it out, right? It canceled itself out. But then from that perspective, time travel doesn't exist then, and that means that Jonas and Marta didn't exist, right? But they do exist because they have to exist to appear to Merrick, almost at Marco, right? That's a real thing that happened, that goes down, right? Merrick sees it, Sonia sees them, Merrick sees them, they exist, they existed, right? That is a life-altering experience or moment for Merrick, right? He, I kind of felt that it is going to feel like a message from above, and lo and behold, a scene later, you have Sonia saying he feels like he kind of ran into angels, and I feel like even if Tannhaus doesn't know, right? Because in this specific situation, he doesn't go on to invent time travel. Merrick has had this experience, and things he's hearing here, the things that Marta and Jonas are saying to him, these are things that really apply to him specifically, and his family and his father, right? Again, hence the reason he believes he had a run-in, he had an experience, a higher force stepped in, perhaps. Speaking of higher force and speaking of his father, that notion of Tannhaus kind of doubling as God, yeah, that you can still kind of lean into that, can't you? He accidentally created Adam and Eve, didn't he? He is the clockmaker, the watchmaker after all, right? The creator. So yeah. Now, listen, I'll be honest. The notion and the idea of Tannhaus losing his son and his son's family, it's a sad one for sure. Right? The thought of it is really quite sad. It's tragic. But I must admit, I feel like it wasn't as impactful for me, at least, given how late in the game it was kind of introduced, right? And it was really quite late in the game, right? Now, it's a double-edged sword. If you start introducing that a bit earlier, then it's almost as if the big twist or the big revelation of this being the origin, people would have known episodes ago, long before the finale, right? About that being the reason, that being the origin. I get that, but also double-edged sword. For that reason, it being left this late, I feel like it just doesn't have the impact, right? Listen, I've just spent 2 seasons, right, following the journey or the journeys of these incredible characters, these characters that are so human. And then, of course, the show itself, the story itself, the writing of the story of this show did such an incredible job of depicting that suffering, struggles they go through, right? And for many of these characters, the lifetime of struggles and suffering is showcased over the span of these 3 seasons, right? And you saw, and I'm sure for many of you it was the same. I was really attached to their experiences, and I had a lot of empathy. I felt for these characters, right? Again, it felt like I spent a lifetime or their lifetime throughout this season, or throughout the seasons, 3 seasons of the show. So there's an attachment there to those characters. To then have this be the origin, right? Listen, I'm not saying that being the origin is a cop-out or anything, that the third world being a thing is a cop-out. I don't think it is. I think it has been alluded in past seasons. There has been some foreshadowing, right, alluding to this, leading up to this. But I did not have the same type of attachment to Tannhaus or that Tannhaus specifically, and Merrick and Sonia. I feel like there wasn't enough time to kind of feel that grief, to feel Tannhaus's grief, to feel the things he's going through, right? That ultimately led him to that point. Listen, I'm not sure how many people agree, but I do feel like it could have used an extra episode. It could have. I mentioned this for the last episode as well. Perhaps 2 extra episodes. Maybe this could have been a 10-episode season, right? Season 3, since it is the final season. Listen, it's not a make or break type thing. I just feel like it wasn't as impactful. And also, another thing that I'll be honest, it's not the most clear cut. It's like I understand it, I get it. I get it. The whole Claudia figured it out thing. But let's be honest, it's not. I don't know. It's not completely satisfactory in its delivery, in its presentation. Her figuring all of this out. I mean, I completely believe that she's the one who could figure this out for sure. But I feel like it's a bit foggy, right? Surely I'm not the only one who feels like this. That it is a bit foggy, yet there's still enough there that okay. It's not a far-fetched idea that she's the one who figured this out, right? As she shoots her counterpart from Ava's world in the last episode, they made it really clear that she doesn't care about Adam, she doesn't care about Ava. None of them truly know anything, right? That she has to be on this path. She has to be the one to figure this out. And I love that she's the one who figured this all out, right? She's an impressive individual, essentially the most impressive in the entire show even, her and Tannhaus, essentially. The whole concept of her kind of investigating and researching over the span of these cycles, information being passed down from herself to herself throughout these loops or cycles. And of course, there's a whole notion of older Claudia telling her if everything goes to plan or according to plan, Regina is going to live or she should live. Yet our Claudia, after experiencing both sides, infiltrating or being a double agent and learning things there as well in Ava's world, and then here in Adam's side as well, she comes to the conclusion, it's quite a concrete conclusion, that Regina dies in both Ava and Adam's worlds, right? That's a fact. It's set in stone. So immediately, she has to start thinking of other possibilities. And essentially, Claudia has the most accurate family tree in that sense, right? Or at least the one detail that the others cannot have, simply don't know about, is Bernd Doppler being Regina's father, right? But that in itself also gives her that angle, right? She knows, okay, so Trant is not the real father, but Bernd Doppler is, meaning Regina should live. Regina should live because there is no time traveling connection there, right? She's not born from time traveling shenanigans, and that's another reason that she felt that Regina is going to be one of the few that is going to live, right? Once all of this is removed. But yeah, the Tiedemans and the Dopplers, at least a certain generation of them, some of the older ones, be it Peter Doppler, and of course you've got his partner. I love how they kind of found themselves in all 3 different worlds, right? Benny and Peter, that is. Hannah, her parents, I've seen her father, he has nothing to do with any of that. She's not mixed in. Yes, her son Jonas is. Yes, Bartosz, he was mixed in and all that. But these are like the next generation, essentially. The teenagers from season 1. Like, essentially none of them exist. But, that generation of Tiedemans and Dopplers, they're kind of untouched by the tumor, the cancer that is the knot, right? And then you have Katerina, right? She exists, though she wasn't really name dropped at the end there, was she? And then of course you have Regina herself, whose hair was really reminding me of our Claudia's hair, middle Claudia, that is. It was great to see Regina. She deserved an ending like that. Though of course, this is not the same Regina. It's a Regina nonetheless, right? She has no recollection of living that life, going through those terrible times, and then dying. But yeah, Regina lives. If everything goes according to plan, Regina should live. Of course, it is sad that there's no Alexandra, though. It could be. Maybe it's an off-screen thing. But ultimately, Adam and Claudia did have a similar goal in mind, right? Listen, ultimately, Claudia admits that indeed she caused a lot of suffering, pain and suffering, um, in order for this to play out. Much like the other two, she also had her part to play. She was also quite selfish. And then, of course, you have Ava, right, who chooses pain over nothingness, right? She understands. She understands that this is self-inflicted, right? Again, kind of, you see the physical representation of that, the slice, the cut, the scar, self-inflicted, right? So this suffering is self-inflicted. The eternally recurring suffering, again, kind of leading into Nietzsche once again. So Ava, made that choice. She felt that pain is better than nothingness. But of course, there's other elements to this. They really lean into it in this episode as well. The origin, well, not the origin. Let's kind of, move on from that. The unknown. Let's, call him the unknown. Her son, right? Essentially, she wants her son to live. She always wants her son to live. But on that front, I don't think it's as simple as just that. I think Ava herself also wants to live because yes, yes, she wants a son to live, but there's not much love there, right? These scenes I see of Ava in 3 different versions of the son, anytime they kind of see each other, it's quite transactional, isn't it? There's not much love there. There's not much warmth there. But yet in this scene, in this episode, you see that Ava almost kind of uses them as a tactic, right? Almost. Let me know if you felt the same. She brings them in, right? Shows this Marta who's, wow, she's going through all these emotions, right? She's had an incredible few hours, tragic few hours. And then, Ava brings in the sons and shows her, this is the reason, and of course the youngest one hugs her. This is the reason you have to continue down the same path, because of your son, because of our son. And then on the other end, you have Adam, who felt that, eternal darkness is the answer to all of this, that is paradise, right? That he realizes now that is true paradise. Ultimately, yeah, it does end up going down that path. So, Adam and Claudia, yeah, they're essentially kind of on the same page in that sense. That being said, make no mistake about it, Claudia's only goal here is Regina, right? Everything she did is so Regina can live, right? That's been firmly established. But essentially, Adam was on the right path, essentially, kind of ending it all. Though he himself couldn't do it, it required that Jonas and Marta together. And of course, you see a shift in demeanor in this episode. And that is quite jarring to see Adam like that, right? In fact, I really, really enjoyed Adam and Claudia, older Claudia together again. It's Jonas and Claudia together again. And once again, Claudia is the teacher and Jonas is the pupil. But something that really stuck out to me during that conversation that Adam and Claudia are having, that concept of you never should have existed. Imagine hearing that, that all of the years you've spent, all of the experiences you've had, good or bad, everything you've gone through, it doesn't matter ultimately, right? That it's going to cease to exist, that you don't matter. That's why I kind of stopped short of calling this a happy ending. For some it is. So it's a bittersweet pill to swallow, isn't it? It is. It really is. And listen, I kind of touched up on it. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough to make an impact, or to have Tannhaus losing his family and that being the origin, and that being the real world, and the people here that existed that I've come to care for and I've become so attached to, are just kind of like a side effect, a tumor, a cancer that had to be severed. But ultimately, I do feel like it's just not as impactful. The whole Tannhaus and Merrick and Sonia angle, and to me, it also kind of felt like Merrick and Sonia almost kind of parallel Marta and Jonas, but Marta and Jonas, star-crossed lovers. I love that. I love their love story in this, right? It's such a fantastic take on a love story. It's such a beautiful ending as well, isn't it? And listen, I think they kind of leaned into it as well, but at one point, it started to occur to me, oh my goodness, could this be yet another predestination paradox? That indeed it's Marta and Jonas who caused the accident in the first place, right? And they'll lean into it. You could tell they're leaning into it a little bit. And I've got to say, once again, the music, and of course the use of the music and the transitions, wow, just beautiful stuff. It really is. It was incredible to kind of go through all of those themes once again, right? Transitioning into each other throughout the scenes. Wow. Listen, I might have a few issues here and there, but ultimately it's a phenomenal finale. It absolutely lands it, right? It sticks the landing. It does deliver a satisfactory, a fulfilling ending to an incredible show. Yes, indeed, this is now my favorite show of all time. It is. It is. Listen, it's beating a dead horse, but this is a masterpiece, a modern juggernaut of television. This is the bar. The bar is set so high at this point that I don't even know, man. I feel like only they can match it. And, again, 1899 is on the horizon soon enough. So let's see. Though, of course, it is going to be its own thing. I don't think any of us should expect it to be in this exact same mold as Dark, right? I'm happy that they are trying something else. So yeah, I think that wraps it up. That wraps it up for Dark. It does. It was an incredible journey, one of the best of all time, and to be able to share that experience with all of you, fellow fans of Dark, it's been one of the best experiences on YouTube for me. And once again, I thank you for joining me for this for the past 6 months. Thank you for your time, as time is precious. Time is really precious, so I appreciate your time. And in terms of the 3 seasons, was this the best episode of the series? No, not for me specifically. On a personal level, no. It's a fantastic episode, fantastic wrap up. But I think there are better episodes of the show. Many of them are from season 2, and some of them in season 3 as well, and a few in season 1. But I've got to say, I think the best season, or my favorite season, I think for me it's got to be season 2. I think season 2 is probably the best of the lot. So yeah, if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like. Consider dropping your comments, right? I've finished the show now, so anything goes. Drop in the comments, let me know your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on some of these things that played out, and anything else, really. If you're interested in full length, consider checking out the Patreon page. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. Of course, there's no more early access. There's also links to social media, Twitter and Instagram, if that's your thing. Whew, okay, so that's it for this. That's it for Dark. The first reaction, the initial reaction to the show, the first 3 seasons. So it's a goodbye for now. But I do hope to see you again soon for 1899 and for more Dark content down the line in the near future. So thank you for joining me for the past 6 months, and I do hope to see you again soon. Until then, take it easy.